And we on. Assalamu alaikum. Peace to the God. What's going on, brother? Yes, sir. What's going on? How's the brother doing? You know what I'm saying? I'm sleepy. You know what I'm saying? Said I'm gonna hit the guard real quick, get this little build in real quick, you know what I mean? And I'll be up 5:30 in the morning. So, about like 9, 10, 11 o'clock, I'll be looking mad woozy. You know what I'm saying? So
brother, you should be fire right now.
yeah, my eyes look like I've been blowing crazy trees. Like my eyes be looking like they completely shut when I get sleepy. You know what I'm saying? But yeah, me and the guard Shahid, we was building too. You know what I'm saying? The other day we supposed to jump back on again. Me, him, and probably Wakil and some of the other guards that was down there in Atlanta, Law's Garden, back in the early 90s when they first started. You know what I'm saying? So I'm probably gonna end up jumping back on with him and doing another build with the brother. You know what I'm saying? Just discussing that history and whatnot. You know what I'm saying? But I wanted to build with you just on the science of, I know we built on it once before. And I know with me and Brother Boris and a few the other guards was on one time, I had asked Brother Boris about it, but I wanted to touch on the science of basically the science of the ZIG. You know what I mean? Is what the 5% is called. But in the Nation of Islam, we would say, he begets not, nor is he begotten. Basically, just show and prove how that first God is like unto that last God, you know what I'm saying? And just drawing the parallels between the two of them, you know what I'm saying? But, yeah, God, I just wanted to build with you on that, you know what I mean? And touch on that understanding, because that's a real powerful bill, at the end of the day, But just to get some understanding of it, how do you see that? Like, a lot of Sunni Muslims may look at us and say, we're practicing shirk, we're kafirun, we're kafirs, you know what I'm saying? We're mushrikeen, the polytheists, you know what I'm saying? We believe in many gods. And how would you break that down, the science of Allah neither begets not, nor is he begotten? How would that science, be, explained to someone of the Orthodox Islamic faith?
It's fairly simple, a fairly simple concept. I would say the issue is in terms of the orientation of Orthodox Muslims, in terms of how the Quran is introduced to them, in terms of understanding the meaning, probably where the problem lies. Um,
Mm-hmm.
let me open up too first. I'm sorry, brother. Um,
Yes, sir.
in the name of Allah, who appeared in the person of Master Fard Muhammad, could never thank him enough for raising in our midst the exalted Christ, the Honorable Elijah Muhammad, and in his absence, never thanked him enough for raising up the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan, who is the modern Messiah in our midst. In these three names, I greet you with the greeting words of peace. Wa assalamu alaikum.
Alaikum salam, sir.
Yes, sir. So I would say the problem lays there, in terms
Mm-hmm.
of how they understand it. They use that ayat in the Quran to say that God is not a man, but and it's the irony is we use that exact ayat to prove he is a man. You know what I mean? So
Mm-hmm.
it's ironic. And the funny thing, in Dr. Wesley's research, he pointed out how in the early Islamic community, right, like
Mm-hmm.
during Prophet Muhammad or right immediately after his death, like they would have debates. They would have debates. So actually, the early history of Islam, they said that God was anthropomorphic, which means he's in the form of a man.
Right.
Like that was the standard of Islam at one time. And the people that think that God is something else, a divine other, like they was, minority, I should say, or that wasn't really established in Islam. They didn't get the respect. That wasn't the dominant idea of Islam, you know,
Mm-hmm.
in the beginning. Most people probably don't know that. And they
Mm-hmm.
used to have debates. They would like even write, books back and forth about it, and eventually they began to gain more ground. The people that believe God is a mystery, and
Mm-hmm.
that He's a divine other or what have you. Eventually they took over Islam and usurped the original idea of God. That's just a historical piece for historians that like to research that type of stuff.
Yes, sir.
But right. But I would say the zigzag zig.
Mm-hmm.
I always like that. I gotta say, shout out to the RZA too, cause I always like the way he said his name, Ruler Zigzag Allah. Not too
Zigzag
many people
Allah.
use that as an acronym.
Yeah.
Yeah, he
Mm-hmm.
might be the first and only person that I've heard. Sure, maybe some other brothers might have heard it, used it maybe before or after him. I don't
Mm-hmm.
know, but as far as my knowledge is, he the first person I heard that put the zigzag zig in his name. Ruler
Mm-hmm.
zigzag zigalah for the
Mm-hmm.
RZA.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So when you look at that, the zigzag zig within itself is a circle, because
Mm-hmm.
it started off with zig, then it goes to zag, then back to zig,
Yes, sir.
So it's kind of like that. Zigzag is a Z, right?
Right.
So it's the 26th letter in the alphabet. It's the last one. So it's kind of like symbolized completion, so to
Mm-hmm.
speak, you know. And it's that circle. So what you get in that circle, you see from zigzag zig, you get knowledge, wisdom, understanding, you know, right? Which is a circle, is relative because knowledge and understanding is relative to one another. Understanding is like, I guess, a higher elevation of knowledge,
Right.
right? But it's one of the same. It's like a growth process from knowledge, so to speak, right? So you have that in the alphabets, starting with a la, then B, be a born, or C, which is understanding, which is again is a circle, right?
Mm-hmm.
So zigzag zig. That's the culture in the 5%, right? 5% Nation of Islam deal with that cipher, right? And that's what it means basically. Man, woman, child, knowledge,
Right.
wisdom, understanding, right?
Right.
Zigzag zig. Right. So it's a circle. So um one of the things that the guard Wakil helped me to see,
Mm-hmm.
sometimes he get a lot of flack for it, but more and more, research I come across, like I have to bear the God witness that, what he said was that, you know, um, the father, like the Nation of Islam established these teachings and the
Mm-hmm.
concepts, right? So a lot of what the father shared with the babies, he
Mm-hmm.
brung from out of the temple,
Right.
and the more and more you dig into lessons, you begin to see that
Mm-hmm.
because it's not just the supreme wisdom lessons that floated around in the nation. There were other lessons, that was also given out to certain students and might not be popular today, but whenever
Mm-hmm.
we unearth them, we begin to see like, oh man, that they was teaching this in the Nation of Islam, like, and it's something you never heard before. You only heard going amongst the gods and herbs, right? But
Right.
there were many, many lessons, that I've come across. Like 12 Jews is an example. The 12 Jews come out of the temple. For
Right.
years I always thought that the gods just came up with that science.
Mm-hmm.
But
Yeah. Me. Me.
so
Me too.
we can find record, right? So we can find record of that in theology of time, right?
Mm-hmm.
In theology of time, the messenger talks about the creation, of God, like his self-creation, right?
Mm-hmm.
So, and it's all centered around the theology of time, like what time actually is and how it
Mm-hmm.
relates to God and how it relates to us as a people,
Mm-hmm.
right? So, just to put you in mind of that, let me read something from Theology of Time, right?
Mm-hmm.
Let me see. This is on page 48. That's if you have a MIPS Theology of Time, I'm not sure if it'd be an Abbas Rasul version of Theology of Time, but
That's the one
if
I
you
got. Yeah, that's
right,
that. That's the one I got. The Boss Rasul.
right,
Yeah.
Rasul, I'm sure what page it is, because sometimes he don't record everything word for word verbatim. Like he kind of like,
Right.
you know what I mean? Like he
Yeah.
edited himself, like his own self-style wisdom, so to speak.
Right. Right. Yeah.
Right. But if you got a MIMPS version, right, and you go to page 48,
Hmm.
page 48, right, he talks about the zero, right? And I say that in terms of the cipher, that's relative, like the gods and the earths would say cipher, right?
Right.
So he says, Elijah Muhammad, is him talking, he asking a question.
Hmm.
He says, I only want to bring you into the knowledge of yourself. He said, why are you nothing? Right? He talking to us, to the audience, right? Why are you
Hmm.
nothing? Are you in any way tallied with the universe? Right? That's the question he asked. The answer is yes. He said, and then he says, Elijah, why did you make the zero round? Because that's the way the universe was before the creation of man.
Right.
Out of it, we came by one who was self-created. He didn't come from the creation of another. He's the creator himself, the first. Remember that. He made himself in a circle so that the wisdom of his self-creation could keep going to give knowledge, wisdom, and understanding to you and me. I want us to remember that. You
Hmm.
see what I'm saying? Now,
What's
that
up?
may sound, real simple, right?
Hmm.
But it really speaks right into the heart and core of that zigzag zig. You
That
see?
that that that
Because he
that
said,
that part is loaded with wisdom. That part, that what you just read right there. Yeah.
yes, sir.
Yeah.
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
He said he didn't come from the creation of another. He's the creator himself, the first. Remember that. He made himself in a circle so that the
Mhm.
wisdom of his self-creation could keep going to give knowledge, wisdom, and understanding to you and me,
Right.
right? Now, the reason we know this is relative to the zigzag zig or the knowledge, wisdom, understanding, or the man, woman, and child is because he's talking about keeping a record, right, of God
Mhm.
forming himself, right, the beginning his self-creation. So he's
Mhm.
saying the only how we can obtain this knowledge, right, me and you, is this is 66 trillion years later, right?
Right.
We building on this. So the
Right.
only way that we could acquire something is if that knowledge is being passed down, right?
Mhm.
Being
Mhm.
passed down in a circle, which
Right.
remember we talked about the circle is man, woman, and then child, right?
Right.
Then that child grow up, and that child again to start the cycle all over again. If it's a
Mhm.
female, she'll find a man, bring forth another child. If it's a boy, he'll find a woman and bring forth another child. Like that's the circle that keep going on,
Right.
so that you and I could acquire this wisdom of how God created Himself. You know what I mean?
Right.
So that's
In
just
infinite circle, I said infinite circle, but infinity, or kind of like circle, infinity. You know,
yes, sir.
yeah.
So I want to say that to this is no slight to the gods and earths or to the Father, right? To Allah. Um,
Hmm.
if people listening to this podcast, they might not know, but the founder of the Nation of Gods and Earths, or the 5% Nation of Islam, right,
Hmm.
was a man named Clarence 13X, right? Clarence 13X when he was in the temple, right? But he left the temple, right? He left the Nation of Islam, right, and went out into the streets and began teaching the youth, the
Hmm.
teens. So when he left, he took on the name of Allah. That's the
Hmm.
name that he took on, Allah. So all his students and his friends as well, like I should say his companions rather, the elders,
Hmm.
addressed him as Allah, right?
Right.
So sometimes the students that he took on were very young. They were very, very young, like teenage, some teenagers from 13 to 17, 19 years old. So he was older. He was like in his 30s at that time. So
Mhm.
they looked to him as a father. So they affectionately called him father,
Right.
because he was like a father to them. He took care of them. He gave them advice, wisdom, counsel, and a lot of them didn't have a father, so that's who they
Mm-hmm.
refer to as a father affectionately. So
Mm-hmm.
sometimes, I refer to him as that father Allah, just to make a distinction between, Allah that came in the person of Master Father Muhammad, or
Right.
whatever have you. Like, so you may make a reference to that. So
Mm-hmm.
me saying this, that the most honorable Elijah Muhammad taught about the cipher, is not to slight the gods.
Right.
It's just to show the root of where the father got this wisdom from and how he processed it. You see what I'm
Right.
saying?
Right.
It didn't come out of thin air,
Mm-hmm.
but this was the teachings that was being circulated. The father, I suspect, was an advanced student. When I say advanced, I just mean he may have put more thought than the average person or student
Mm-hmm.
to the teachings. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So he was able to process things, synthesize the teachings, and give it back in his own way of building, or his own self-style wisdom.
Right.
So I just wanted to make that clear. That
Mm-hmm.
this is
Mm-hmm.
I'm just showing how we a family, and we are branches on the tree.
On the same
The
tree.
Nation of
Right.
Islam is the root.
Mm-hmm.
It's that trunk. And the
Mm-hmm.
father is a branch on there. So
Right.
I want to also, okay. Let me move down a little bit, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I wanted to say this part. He says on the same page,
Mm-hmm.
right? On the same page, because this again is the zigzag zig. He says, since we started from nothing, right? Because the zero has no value, right? It's nothing. That's what the
Right.
zero or the cipher usually is. It has no value, right? He says, so we started from nothing, and God Himself started from nothing. We're
Right.
going to something because the Creator found something more in the darkened circle that He had thought that He would find. He's not here today, right? He's talking about that first God. That first God is not living amongst us. He returned to the essence. He passed away, died, right? So
Right.
he said he's not here today. That same man, but he laid a base for a wise God to come and get a platform out of his work of self-creating,
Mm-hmm.
right? So that
Mm-hmm.
part right there is key. The
Yeah.
first God that originated himself in darkness is not physically alive, but he left a work for another wise man to come lay a base and build upon, right?
Right.
So that's
Right.
relative to the Quran and the scripture that says, he's not begotten. He Allah is not begotten, nor does he beget, right?
Mm-hmm.
In terms of what we spoke of earlier in this
Mm-hmm.
platform, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I'm gonna speak to that. I'm gonna
Mm-hmm.
speak to that a little further, right? But first, before I speak on that, brother, I
Mm-hmm.
want to speak on the
Mm-hmm.
self creation of Allah, right? And um,
From the triple stages of darkness to self-creation.
from the triple stages of darkness, right?
Right.
And one thing, uh, the Father says this, right?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, this is what the Most Honorable Elijah Muhammad says.
Mm-hmm.
He says, if our Father was made on the number one, how did he get that figure? If there had not been any more on the earth or in the universe in his creation, how did he become one? We only want to build up ourselves so that we may know who we are and how we got to be who we are, right?
Mm-hmm.
So this is the science of numbers right here I'm going into, right? So this relates also to the nation of gods and earth because they have a system, right? A system of numbers called supreme mathematics, right? So this is not supreme mathematics in the sense that they wrote, but it's telling you the science of numbers and what numbers actually are, the
Right.
theology of time. So here he's identifying God as one, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I also want to read this. He says, if if the atom was one, right? Now
Mm-hmm.
that's a key point right there. If the atom was one, because the Most Honorable Elijah Muhammad taught us that God, right, built himself up into an atom, right,
Mm-hmm.
and that his self-creation started from an atom, built itself up, to a molecule, to cells, to eventually form a human body, right? Human
Right.
body. So, but it started from that atom. So he's identifying the atom as one, right?
Mm-hmm.
So
Mm-hmm.
keep that place because we're going to speak more into that.
Mm-hmm.
Before we get there, I want you to check this out. He says, if the atom was one, could it have really been one? We are taught that an atom is 1/10,000 of one. This is 1/10,000 of one. Certain parts of it, or elements as they call it, then how did our Father get up all of those other parts to become one part? Right? So that's telling you that he built himself up to one atom. He didn't
Right.
originally
Right.
start that way. It's 10,000 parts to build up to that one, right?
Mm.
And that's the beginning of God, right? And that
Mm-hmm.
also is the beginning of time, right?
Mm.
I want to make that clear, um,
Mm.
of the one, because as I move further, we're going to speak on how God became one, the first God, and
Mm-hmm.
show how it relates to the last God, right? In this
Mm-hmm.
dispensation of time right now.
Right.
So,
So real
um,
quick, he like you said, he used the material that was in the darkness around him, and that atom began to draw other things to itself to gain weight or heavier as it built up from atom or quarks to atoms to, you know what I'm saying? You
yes, sir.
know, yeah.
Right.
Okay.
So this is what I wanted to build upon, right? Because it's
Hmm.
kind of controversial
Hmm.
to some people in terms of that, right? So how
Hmm.
the Most Honorable Elijah Muhammad described
Hmm.
that occurrence right there, the buildup of the atom. He
Right.
said, in the darkness of space, there is a force, right? That was the term he used. That there
Hmm.
was a force in the darkness of space, right?
Hmm.
And he he explained it like this. He said that Allah formed himself from triple darkness, right?
Hmm.
So when we think of darkness, we just think of nighttime, right? But that's not real darkness. Darkness is material or matter, right?
Right.
So scientists, they use the term dark matter. They'll say
Hmm.
that the universe is filled with dark matter, right?
Hmm.
And but the Most Honorable Elijah Muhammad termed it triple darkness, right?
Right.
So the one thing that we do know that's in the darkness, number one, right, is that it's dark, it's blackness, it's black,
Hmm.
right? That
Right.
material, there was no light, there was no sun, so it's all black. That's the first thing that we know is in that darkness. Science confirms that because even they
Right.
call it dark matter, right?
Hmm. Right.
Second thing is water. Most Honorable Elijah Muhammad said that all life in the universe stems from water. You can't have life without water, right?
Right.
So what we see in that is, the hydrogen atom, right, is the first atom on the periodic chart.
Right.
Hydrogen, you know what I mean? Hydro implies water. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
It's a form of water, right? So most of the universe itself is made up of hydrogen, you know what I
Right.
mean, in terms of the element. So we
Right.
see that space itself has water in it, right? And our
Right.
bodies are 75% water, they say,
Yes, sir.
right?
Yes, sir. Yeah.
Right. So all life is water. So the Most Honorable Elijah Muhammad termed it triple darkness.
Hmm.
Now, this part is my theory.
Hmm.
This part is my theory. I'm not passing this off as fact, but this is how I scienced it up. Because
Hmm.
sometimes you see it is referred to as triple darkness, right?
Hmm.
So to me, I'm thinking triple implies three, right? So
Hmm.
it's the darkness of the matter we have, right? That's number one. It's the water that's in the darkness. That's number two. But another thing the Most Honorable Elijah Muhammad said was that electricity is mysterious, right? It's the most mysterious
Force in
element
the
known in the
universe.
universe.
Right. You know, nobody
They
knows
don't
its
know the
origin.
origin,
Right.
right? So electricity. So to me, I see that word force as electricity, right? Or energy, right?
Right.
So some people may say, "Oh, you religious? This is malarkey." You talking right, but scientists back that up, and they say that the law of conservation tells us that energy can't be created nor destroyed, right? The law of conservation means that there's a set amount of energy in the universe,
Right. It's
right? And it's
constant.
constant.
Yes, sir.
It only changes, but you can't take away from it. You can't subtract any of the energy, and you can't add to none of the energy, right?
Right.
So
Right.
then that bears witness that, you know, this electricity must be so, right? Or force, as the Most Honorable Elijah Muhammad used. So some people misconstrue that, say, oh, a force, you know, you must be talking about some mystery guy, like some spirit or spook, like ghost, you know. But the messenger never used that word. You know, he never implied that. He just used the word force, right?
Right. Right.
And like I said, when you look at force, right, or that electricity, you see a polarity, right? Polarity meaning is positively charged and negatively charged, right? So we see that, right, within the atom itself. So that's not far fetched. You know,
No.
he says this force that was in the darkness found that the water atom, right? He found the water atom and he entered it. So some people say, oh, how can the force enter the atom, right? But when you look at an atom, that's all the atom is positively charged and negatively charged, right? With a proton and electron. It's a polarity that causes it, you know what I mean, to work or flow, right? So within that atom, scientists studied it, right? And they kept studying the atom, and what they found deeper in the atom, what they call quarks, right? So that's even smaller than an atom. You know, atom is supposed to be the tiniest unit of particle, right, of matter. But even smaller than that, within the atom is a quark, which is also positively and negatively charged, right? So all the atom is energy, balls of energy. You see what I'm saying? So, to me, I interpret that as the force that the most honorable Elijah Muhammad talked about that was in the darkness, right? So he says this. Let me say this quote.
That's a good. That's, I mean, you said it's a theory, but that's pretty much a scientific. You know what I mean? That's you know what I mean? Yes, sir.
Yes, sir. That kind of hit the nail on the head, right?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. It's like when you understand the
So
basis that when you just to say this real quick, when you understand the basis of the science, it's like you can hypothesize, but it's, you know, a lot of times it's correct. Your assumptions or whatever are correct because it's based on the science that you already know, and that's, you know, that is already known. You see what I'm saying? So, you know, those assumptions a lot of times they have you know, mathematical credibility in them. You know what I'm saying? They're not you to just randomly pull them out of the sky somewhere. They make sense when you apply it to the foundation of what we know. You know what I'm saying?
that's right.
Yes, sir.
That's right. And we also, to keep in mind what you just said, is keep in mind that this is the early 1930s. This is a man that only went up to the fourth grade education. You know, some
Yes,
people say fifth, but fourth
right.
grade education, fifth grade education, that was as far as he went. But
Mhm.
he's breaking down atoms, right, in the beginning of God's self-creation and time. You see what I'm saying? So you also, like, where did he get them from?
You don't.
See,
I think
so
when
that's, to me,
I think when I was in I think I might have been in junior high school, either or going to junior high. I was either in the sixth or the seventh grade when I first started learning about, you know, the periodic chart, you know, table or whatever with all of the elements and what is helium, what is hydrogen, what is, you know what I'm saying? All that stuff. But yeah, he didn't even make it to that grade. And he, like you said, here he is given that type of information, you know what I'm saying, which confounds the scholars.
yes, sir. Yes,
Yeah,
sir.
yeah.
And he to me, he used the perfect word, force, like, right. And I'm gonna go further into why I think it was perfect, right. But before we do that, I'm gonna read one more quick quote, right. And this
Mm-hmm.
is still in the theology of time. This is all in the theology of time, right.
Right.
This page is 78, right. What I just read to you before, where it says, if our father was made on the number one, that start on page 77, right.
Mm-hmm.
Then we go to the next page on 78. And towards the bottom, the messenger says this, the messenger of Allah, right, is the most honorable Elijah Muhammad. He says, if we see one, right, there goes that one again, right? So remember, he identified the one as an atom, right?
Right.
God built himself up in the atom from 10,000 parts to become one, right? That's that force, built the atom up. So he says, if we see one emerge out of all this darkness, what force or power in the darkness brought it out? One could not have come out of darkness unless force was in the darkness to bring it out. In the universe, there is a force that moves seemingly unmovable stars. Woo! That's powerful. So here he's telling us that the force in the force, or what force or power in the darkness brought that atom out of the darkness, right? Into view. Woo! So he's saying there has to be a force or power in the darkness, right? So from that right there,
a mighty force.
a mighty force, right? So let me see. He identifies
when you
that
think about
force.
when you think about a you know, like a neutron star, you know what I'm saying? Something that's super massive, you know, that has the mass on a neutron star. I can't even, you know what I'm saying? Or, you know, a pulsar, or you know, just some of these, you know, gigantic, super enormous celestial things out there. That type of force to move that is just, you know what I'm saying? You
Right.
know, yeah. Wow.
That's ill.
Mm.
Let me see. I'm trying to find his one more quote because he actually identifies the force, right, in the same publication, right? Uh, let me see. It's in my notes, but he what he says is he talks about that one, right, and he identifies the one as God, because remember he said the force is what brung the atom out of the darkness. So it's saying the force made the atom move, right? So it made the atom move and made it rotate and revolve, right? And it said it was a light. It said it was a light of himself. Like God is a light of himself, right? So that's not far-fetched because there's light in the atom. You see what I'm saying? If you blow apart an atom, an explosion to happen, you will see light. You see what I'm saying? Within it, if you break apart an atom, it causes an explosion. So it's light within the atom, right? And it revolves, right? The electron is revolving around the proton and it moves, right? So the messenger tells us that he says that is the beginning of time, right? When that first atom in the darkness moved, it created time. There was no time prior to that because there was no activity. So the most honorable Elijah Muhammad says that time is motion. That's what time actually is, motion. So he says, if I put my hand up like this and I bring it down, we're calculating time from the moment that I had it up to the moment that I brung it down. You make time. So that's what it is, and that's not hard to see because we judge time by the movement of the celestial spheres, right? The planets moving around the sun is what dictates time. So you know what I mean? That can't be argued that time is motion, right? So he said that we don't know God's beginning, right? Because there was no one there with God to record the time because he just was moving and building himself up from the atom. So there was no way for him to record it. He didn't have enough, you know, wisdom or knowledge to set up something to record the time or that motion of that atom, right? So that's why we don't know God's beginning. There's no birth record of it. He self-created himself in the darkness. There was a period of a beginning, right, or a type of beginning, but there's no record of it, right? So that's not something crazy, you know. Many people in the South were born down south, you know, during the turn of the century, and they don't have birth certificates. Like, there's no record of their birth. You see what I'm saying? Like, the most honorable Elijah Muhammad didn't know exactly when he was born. Like
Right.
they just
Right.
didn't keep records like that in the South. You know, it's no big deal, crazy thing, or something to go blow a brain gasket over. You know, so
Mm-hmm.
so he talks about that force and about the motion, right?
Mm-hmm.
So the how we tie that into, you know, he's not begotten nor does he beget, referring to Allah. He's not
Mm-hmm.
begotten nor does he beget, right? We tie that in to the last God, right?
Mm-hmm.
We're gonna tie that in. So um, that's on a scientific plane that we're discussing now in terms of force being electric, right? Electricity and
Mm-hmm.
energy, right? So on the spiritual side of things, right? To me, on the spiritual side of things, that makes sense
Mm-hmm.
because the Most Honorable Elijah Muhammad said that God means possessor of force and power, right?
Right.
That's the definition of God, possessor of force and power. Like sometimes it just says God means force and power. So
Mm-hmm.
that makes sense to me because what that's saying is that God, his will cannot be overcome. His will is
Right.
so powerful that whatever he wishes to happen, he has the force and power within himself to make it happen. You see,
Right.
he has the patience,
Mm-hmm.
right, to put his plan in motion, and he
Mm-hmm.
has the force. So the force is will, determination, and energy. You see what I'm
Right.
saying, right? Energy, and it's also knowledge. So look at this. When you talk about energy, right? You talk about like how to eat to live, right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So when you do how to eat to live correctly, right, and you eating one meal a day and you fasting,
Mm-hmm.
you actually have more energy than when you eat 3 meals a day. You know what I mean? It's ironic. It probably sounds crazy to some out there, but if
Mm-hmm.
you was to actually experiment with fasting and go a few days without eating, you will find that you have an abundance of energy. You know what I
Mm-hmm.
mean? And that energy, you would think that you need energy from food,
Right.
but it's kind of tasking on the body to process a meal, right? It takes
Right.
a lot
Right.
of energy to process a meal, and that's what makes you sluggish and makes you tired. But
Right.
when you eat food that have the proper nutrients in it, it gives you energy, and when you fast, it gives you energy, right? To accomplish your goal, right? So that's one thing, energy, and like I said, it's the determination, right? Determination and force in your will, and that's
Mm-hmm.
also knowledge gives you energy because the more knowledge you have, the more powerful you are, the more force you have to execute your will
To move.
and
Yeah.
achieve
Or
your
yeah.
goal.
Right.
You see
Right.
what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
Right. So it makes sense when the Most Honorable Elijah Muhammad used that word force, that a
Mm-hmm.
force was in the darkness. It makes sense that that's the essence of God Himself, force and power, because no one can overcome His will, His power. He just has too much knowledge, too much energy, determination. He's wiser than us to make his goals come to fruition. Right.
Mm-hmm.
So I thought that was perfect in terms of a scientific term as well on the spiritual side, right? So
Sure.
how we turn that in, and I have to wrap this up. You know, we're
Mm-hmm.
not going all night.
Mm-hmm.
So we look at that. That's the creation of the first God, right?
Right.
So we also see that, right? We also see that coming forward, right? Because and let me touch upon this as we move forward, right? The
Mm-hmm.
messenger said once that Adam moved and he was a light within himself, he said that God built himself up to a physical form, right? A man from an atom to a cell to tissue to blood, bone, and brains, right?
Mm-hmm.
And brains came first, and it called the
Mm-hmm.
rest of the body into existence. So
Right.
some people say, how could force have intelligence, right? Like, what are you talking about? How force can have intelligence, right? But scientists did an experiment, right? Scientists took a gun, right? A maser gun. They put an atom in it and they fired it at these slits, right? At these plates.
Yeah.
And the the atom behaved in a peculiar way. Like when they shot the atom, it did a certain thing towards the plate. I believe it landed on the plate, but then the scientists manipulated the plate. I forget exactly what they did. Maybe they
That
left a
that was the
slit in it.
Yeah, it was
They,
this.
they
I
somehow
think it's called the slit experiment or something like that. I think is what the
right,
experiment is called, something like that. But it was just showing that the atom or the photon, because it was a photon particle. The photon had a dual nature. That's all it was basically showing, that as it travels through space time, it's one way. As it comes in contact with material, it comes into another form, particle form.
right.
Excuse me. But uh, it had intelligence because it observed and it knew, like a camera was like someone was watching it. It knew that it was being watched. You see what I'm saying?
Right.
So because they put the camera on it, thought they could get slick, the scientists, and put it still knew and it did something different. You know what I'm saying? But yes, sir. I think
Yes,
it's called a slit experiment or slit something like that. Slit experiment or something like that. Yeah. Yes,
yes,
sir.
sir. If anybody, I know you can also find it in the Book of God. You can definitely find it spoken of in the Book of God, written by True Islam. You
Right,
know,
right.
his author name is True Islam.
Mm,
His name is Dr. Wesley Muhammad, but
mm,
he wrote under the name True Islam. It's called the Book of God, and the subtitle is an encyclopedia of proof that the black man is
man,
God.
it's God.
You can
Yeah, yes,
find
sir.
that experiment in there when we discussed it, or you could Google it, right? But the scientists bore witness that the atom has intelligence in it, right? So
Right.
the most honorable Elijah Muhammad told us that
Oh,
if we
it's
want
called.
to know the beginning of
Mhm. No, I had just pulled it up real quick. It's called the double slit experiment. Yeah, the
double
double
slit,
slit
okay,
experiment. Yes, sir. Yeah, yes, sir.
yeah. So the most honorable Elijah Muhammad tells us if we want to know God's self creation, he said all we have to do is look at our own birth, how we came
Right,
to be, and that will explain to us how God formed himself,
right.
because we are his children, formed in his image, right?
Mhm.
So he says when you look at the sperm, the sperm has intelligence in it, you know,
Mhm.
because it has to find the egg, it has to find the egg, so there is some intelligence there,
Mhm.
and we also know that it must possess force, the sperm, because for one, the sperm is going upstream, to find the egg, right? So it has to have force or will. Plus, it's a race. You know what I
Mhm.
mean? The sperm is racing to the egg, and there's billions of them, and it's a race. So it also has to have force within it to win that race. You see what I'm saying? So
Yes,
when
sir.
it hit its target, it enters the egg, just like that force entered the atom, right?
Right.
And an explosion happens, boom, and all scientists also say that light is emitted from sperm, like, what I mean. I saw a video where when it hit the egg, it actually, light went off, a flicker, like
Yeah,
an explosion.
yeah. Fusion, nuclear
Right,
fusion, like a, yeah. Yes, sir.
right. You
Mhm.
see, so that sperm cell hits the egg, and then it begins to build itself up, a
Mhm.
cell by cell,
Mhm.
molecule for molecule, and the first thing that's formed is the brain. Then the
Mhm.
brain call all the other organs and the limbs into being. You know what I mean? The
Mhm.
rest of your body. So the same thing that as far as God, like as he built himself up from an atom, he first formed the brain so that he could think on a higher plane.
Mhm.
You
Mhm.
see what I'm saying? So Most Honorable
So,
Elijah Muhammad wrote that.
mhm. No, I was gonna say real quick. So just to compare the two intelligences, if you will, if that's a word, intelligences. But one intelligence, which was the sperm, you know, which is of course a life force. It was intuitive intelligence,
Right.
and once he built brain up now in order to think, it raised the conscious level to a higher position, to where now it's not just intuitive, but it's an intelligence that's backed by a force or power or determination rather. And even though the intuitive still has the determination, so I mean I can't really say that. But it's just showing a difference. I guess you're showing the differences between the two intelligences of the brain being able to function and think on something versus a sperm traveling. You know, both of them are intelligent, but one you're saying is a higher caliber than the other.
Right. See, I
Okay.
personally believe, this is my thought, you know, this is not actual fact, but I believe that the atom was thinking and that it had thoughts even prior to the brain, you know, but
Mm,
it's just that the organ of the brain is the highest plateau of thought. You see what I'm
right.
saying? So the Holy Quran tells us that Allah takes a thing and builds it stage after stage till it reaches its eventual perfection, right?
Right.
So you
Right.
see that manifested in the sperm in our very beginning, because we start from nothing and we build up, you know, to a man. And men are the supreme beings. When I say men, that's, you know, unisex, men and women. Like, we are the
Right.
supreme beings of the universe. Like,
Right.
people believe in ghosts or spirits and things of that nature, but scientifically, there is nothing in the universe that we could point to that has more intelligence than man. You see what I'm
Right.
saying? Like, not
Right.
trees, not animals, not the moon, not the
Right.
sun. You see what I'm
Right.
saying? There's nothing that we can point to that we could say has an intelligence greater than man. So scientifically, you know, men and women are the supreme beings of the universe. Like, that can't be disputed. You could only believe that it's something higher, but you
Right.
can't prove that it's something higher than man, right?
Right.
So
Right.
that's the thing about the sperm and about the atom. It built itself up. Allah built himself up to become more. You see what I'm saying? Because
Mm-hmm.
he he brings something stage after stage, right?
Mm-hmm.
He elevates it stage after stage till it reaches its eventual perfection. So life
Right.
is on a course. We're
Mm-hmm.
all on a course heading towards perfection,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Mm-hmm.
So that's what we find in that in that development. And I think
Mm-hmm.
that was a good way to explain it, because we all could see that 9 months baby, like, you know, forming
Right.
itself, and you know, it's something divine there that's taking place, right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So um I thought that was a beautiful way of putting it, right? So
Mm-hmm.
we see
So
that with the first God.
right. Okay. The first God. Okay. Yeah. Okay.
First God. So now, also what we see now is the last God, right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So that ayah in the Quran, he says, he begets not, nor is he begotten, means this. We saying that God is a man, right? He began as a man.
Mm-hmm.
He's not begotten, right? It says he's not begotten. Begotten means that you were birthed, like you had parents. You was born from a mother or a father, right?
Mm-hmm.
So that
Mm-hmm.
first guy had no parents. He was self-created. You know, it was that force that was in the darkness that wanted more. Because it
Mm-hmm.
wanted more, it started to build and elevate itself to different stages and forms, higher and higher. So it had no parents. It's self-created, right?
Mm-hmm.
But
Mm-hmm.
um, life is a continuum. Remember, he said life is in a circle of man,
Right.
woman, and child. So
Right.
God didn't make human beings to live forever. You see what I'm
Right.
saying? Like, in our minds, we watch cartoons and we watch movies that say God can live forever, right?
Mm-hmm.
But
Mm-hmm.
that's just someone's thought of what they think God is, right?
Mm-hmm.
But in Scripture, the Holy Quran as well as the Bible, it tells us that God will send us a person, right, to
Mm-hmm.
teach
Mm-hmm.
us into all truths, right?
Right.
So that means that if you're a rabbi, if you're an imam, you know, a Jewish rabbi, a Islamic imam, or Christian priest, or, you know, a preacher, you don't have the full truth, right? Unless you are that person that God sent into the world to explain the Bible and the Quran and the Torah, right?
Right.
So you don't find too many people talking like that,
Mm-hmm.
besides the Most Honorable Elijah Muhammad claiming that they met with God in person,
Right.
right? So the Most Honorable Elijah Muhammad explains the Quran to us, right?
Mm-hmm.
So we think that we are supposed to live forever, but the truth is you wouldn't want to live forever. Like, one of the things that I liked about watching vampire pictures is that the vampire is cursed because he lives forever. He actually doesn't want to live forever. You
That
see what
yeah.
I'm saying? He's
That's
cursed.
a curse.
He
That's a
see his
curse to
loved
him.
ones die and he's just here alone. Like, And you know, because life goes in a circle, you're going to see the same patterns over and over again because human beings have the same nature. You know, I may live a different life than you, see life differently, but we have the similar emotions, you know, so we human beings go through cycles, you know, so you get bored seeing that over and over. So God didn't make himself to live forever, but he made himself to live forever in terms of his DNA, in terms of his nature. You see, we have his nature, and that lives on forever, his knowledge and his wisdom, because he built the universe. So that's what lives on, his knowledge and his wisdom, and it lives on through people. You see what I'm saying? Is we acquire that same DNA, right? That same knowledge and wisdom, and we express it, you know, through our mode of existence, you know. Then, you know, it's like the father is born, the father passes on to the son, father dies, the son takes over, and then he manifests it. You see, so it's a circle. Remember, he said he made himself into a circle to pass down his wisdom of his self-creation to us, right? And that circle is man, woman, and child. So with that being said, that is why the Holy Quran says we, you know, and we put mountains on the earth, and we, you know, put the sun into existence. We, you see what I'm saying? It always speaks like that. We, because life is a continuum, man, woman, and child. Like, see, that's why he speaks like that. We, because no one being lives forever. So it's the first God and the last God, right? So the last God is the other part of that ayat, right? Remember, the ayat is Allah begets not, nor is he begotten, right? So we explain why God is not begotten. It's because he didn't have parents, he was self-created. But then it says he begets not. So all the Orthodox Muslims use that ayat to say that, you know, God can't be a man because he wasn't born and he don't have children, right? But the Most Honorable Elijah Muhammad said they don't understand it because they think God is one being that lives forever, but he's not. It's saying that the first God is not begotten, and the last God, right, who we identify as Master Fard Muhammad, that was the teacher of the Most Honorable Elijah Muhammad. He's the one who taught the Most Honorable Elijah Muhammad, right? So it says he begets not. That means he doesn't have children, right? So the Most Honorable Elijah Muhammad was not from his physical loins, right? He's not his son by blood. He's his spiritual son. He gave birth to the Most Honorable Elijah Muhammad spiritually by teaching him. You know what I mean? Teaching him for 3.5 years, talking to him. And he gave birth to him that way. So he begets not. He didn't need to make a physical son. You know what I mean? He made a spiritual son. So that's what that ayat means. Allah begets not, nor is he begotten, because it's talking about the first God and the last God. So we see that ZIG, ZAG, ZIG in that instance. So that's much more practical. You know, people frown on that, but in terms of practicality, that makes sense because people have been living for trillions of years, but not no one individual living for trillions of years. So Allah is a continuum. Continuum or office. You see what I'm saying? Office. But I don't want to go deep into that. You know, maybe that's for another bill. But what I do want to say is, so once we establish that who Master Fard Muhammad is in the ZIG, ZAG, ZIG, we can now see it. We can see it, right? Because we have a foundation, right? So now we look at what the what the Master Fard Muhammad did. So remember, it says that he came from nothing, right? That zero has no value, no numerical value, right? Zero is nothing. So it says that Allah is nothing. We consider Allah nothing because he was doing nothing in the darkness of that space until he decided to find that atom and move into that atom and move. Then motion began. So when motion began, that's time. He began producing himself, right? He began building himself up, creating himself, his motion. So us being taken into slavery here for 400 years, we was reduced to nothing. You see what I'm saying? We were kings and queens. We were men of noble origin. We were sages. We were builders of civilization, right? But once we was taken into slavery, we was reduced to nothing. And they remind us every day. Hey,
Yeah.
nigga, pick up that bale that hay, bale that cotton. You
Mm-hmm.
know, you're nothing. They whipping
Mm-hmm.
us. They doing all these horrific things to us and destroying our self-esteem.
I
Right?
was gonna, I was gonna say, just to interject real quick, not really when we were just taken off into slavery, but to be more specific, once we were brought over here, and that first 64-year period, like the Most Honorable Elijah Muhammad said, they took our ancestors, the first slaves that was brought here, and literally like made them mate and have babies and just wound them all up and just had target practice because, you know, just to get rid of them, you know what I'm saying? Basically, because he didn't want any transfer of information or nothing to be passed. So that period, no more reading no books, no more reading, no more, you know, calling out the Adhan or none of that. So from that point, we was reduced all the way to zero. You know what I'm saying?
Zero.
Yes, sir.
Nothing.
Yeah.
So the savior, right? That's what we call
Mhm.
Master Muhammad. Sometimes we refer to him as savior. We say he's a lying person. So he
Right.
came amongst us as nothing, right?
Mhm.
And he began to create motion. You see what I'm
Mhm.
saying? So in the first God, he built himself up from the darkness of space,
Mhm.
right? Which was
Mhm.
doing nothing to
Mhm.
make himself. So Master Muhammad, the savior, came amongst us, right? And he built himself up. Like,
Mhm.
why? Some people may feel that's controversial me saying that, but I'm
Mhm.
qualify that. I'm gonna try to qualify why I say that.
That no,
Um,
I see what you say, what you mean when you
there,
say that. Yeah, I see what you mean when you say that. Yeah, that's not controversial because his father began the process, but he had to continue to build himself up when he got over here. He had to study both. He had to study us. He had to study the enemy. He had to, you know what I'm saying? You know, so
right,
that's
right.
like building yourself up as well.
Remember his the council, right? His
Right.
peers. He had a council of people, and they had doubt that we can be helped, or that us over here in America can be restored. They was
Right.
like, give up on them, like it ain't no restoring them. They too far gone,
Yeah.
right? But that's for Muhammad. So he made himself from the material that in the darkness that was nothing, because he proved to the rest of those on the council that he is a God, because he did what they could not do, what they didn't have enough force and power within them to complete. So he made himself the greatest God of all time by taking, a people that was nothing and reduced to zero. And it says when I skipped over that part, but it says that he moved the atom, became motion, but it also said that he could move stars. He could seemingly move stars, right? Unmovable stars. And it
Right.
also says that the God put stars out into the Milky Way, like when he was creating the heavens and the earth.
Mhm.
He put so many stars out in the Milky Way where it was all darkness at one time. Now
Mhm.
we can't see out of light. There's so much
Mhm.
light, right?
Mhm.
So you see that occurrence in Master Fard Muhammad. He came amongst us and began to move us, right? And he shaped us, you know what I mean, into stars, right? So
Mhm.
the lessons tell us that 144,000 of us will be the stars of heaven. You see what I'm saying? So Master Fard Muhammad is coming over here and making a Milky Way galaxy amongst us, right? Now that may sound far-fetched to some people, right? But last week we all witnessed a documentary by a man named Muhammad Ali, who was formerly Cassius Clay, right?
Mhm.
Who at one time was the most popular person on earth, more popular than Jesus Christ himself, right? So
Mhm.
he made him into a star, right? So the council that was over there that said we couldn't be helped or restored, imagine them watching the world and seeing this news of these people that was nothing, producing someone like a Muhammad Ali that shook up the world, produce someone like Most Honorable Elijah Muhammad, world-renowned teacher, produce someone like Malcolm X, produce someone like the father, Clarence 13X, Minister Farrakhan. These are stars, and these are people that impact the entire world. You see what I'm saying? So Master Muhammad is proving that he's the God and making himself, worthy to be praised in terms of his accomplishment here. So we see the ZIG, ZAG, ZIG. You see what I'm saying? As it was in the beginning, so shall it be. you know, in the ending. You see what I'm saying? So it's a beautiful teaching. We see again that force. He had that force and power within him to say, I could do it. Even though they've been reduced to nothing, like I got it within me. I have the will within me, the determination, the force, the electricity, the polarity to move a people that was nothing. You see what I'm saying? So that
Good teaching,
zigzag
bro. Beautiful.
fit right with who begetteth not, nor is he begotten.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. That's a beautiful teaching, God. Yes, sir. And the ZAG, you know, because you got ZIG on two ends, but the ZAG now would be, of course, who Allah produced in order to reproduce himself again, in order to bring the ZIG back out again. In other words, which would be the messenger, the Honorable Elijah Muhammad, or the spiritual mother of the, you know, the nation of gods, you know what I'm saying, the nation of Islam. So yes, sir. Yeah, that's beautiful, man. I like the way you know what I mean. When you started mentioning about the stars and stuff, you know, I like that. I like that because
Yes,
you can see it's practical. You can see that. You know, like we were literally reduced to nothing. Like the universe is just black and no stars, no nothing of, you know, came forth yet. It was just a dark, desolate place. That's how we were. You know what I'm saying? As a people, you know what I'm saying? So yeah, I like the way you know what I mean? I like that, God. Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
and if you could see it amongst the people, like when you have the teachings of the Most Honorable Elijah Muhammad, you become a star amongst your people. You see what I'm
Yeah.
saying? We see that. We saw that, you know, through the nation of gods and earths. You had teenagers, right? Teenagers that was in the gutter, right? That was running around committing crimes. Like Harlem was crazy then. It was during the heroin epidemic and, you
Yeah.
know, all of this craziness running around. But these teenagers got some of that light that Elijah cast and that Master Muhammad brought, and they stirred up the whole all five boroughs. You see what I'm saying? They stirred that thing up, man, and you know it spread like
yeah, the whole tri. I was gonna say the whole tri-state. You know, initially, yeah.
You see what I'm saying? So Master Muhammad, you know, showing forth his power. You know what I mean? He's manifesting and showing and proving.
Yes, sir.
So, and we see that with the nation of God and earth. We see that in the hip hop. We see that with the rock hymns, the poor righteous teachers, the brand Nubians, and even now with the J Electronicas. And, you know, they get this light, you know, and it does something to you. It activates you, see? Because what the Most Honorable Elijah Muhammad said, he said we was nothing because we're not doing nothing. So he says we're not making time. Because remember, he said time is motion. So, right, motion is activity, is production. So, in the 400 years, us being under their foot, now we're not making time. But Master Muhammad came to show us how to make time, and that's to be productive. You see what I'm saying? So, we are making time now, and we look at the efforts of the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan, and what he did was remarkable. You see what I'm saying? Like, you can even see that Milky Way galaxy when the Million Man March came together. You see what I'm saying? All those stars and stuff came in, you know what I mean? And he just sent everybody out into their orbit and just to shine that light to where you can never get away from the teachings now. Like, no matter how hard they try to destroy it, you know, with the scandals, with the propaganda, like, you just can't get out of the light. You see what I'm saying? It's before it was all darkness, now it's just all light everywhere. And even if you got people taking the teachings and bending it to something else, you see what I'm saying? It's like you just can't get away from it.
Can't get out of that light, you know.
Yes, sir.
Can't get out of that light. And we know, like I said, the photon particle, you know, is information. Pretty much it's a carrier of information. You know what I'm saying? So wherever that light strikes, it causes things to move, you know, and it's, you know, spin at 1,037 and a third mile per hour. You know, I was building with Brother Boris, and, you know, he talked about the, you know, just the imperfection of man, you know, due to the earth's, you know, wobble, or, you know what I'm saying? He kind of touched on that as well, you know what I mean? But I mean, again, your breakdown is beautiful because, again, you can see that it's practical, it's scientific, you know, I mean, you know, who could dispute that? You know what I'm saying? You know, that's why I said I'm gonna have to get you to break it down. You know what I mean? Because you know, and that's not to say Brother Boris or none of the other Muslim guards can't break it down either. But I think I kind of explained it to him wrong when I did ask him about it. If I would have said, you know, the 112th surah, you know what I'm saying? You know, Lam Yalid wa Lam Yulad wa Lam Yakula hu kufuwan ahad. He begets not nor is he begotten, and there was none like. If I would have said that, then I know he would have been able to pretty much run with it from there. You know what I mean, and break it all the way down. But yeah, God, you did a good job, and I like that. I like that. Very practical, very scientific. I like that. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
Praise be to Allah.
Just because you said something, I just want to throw this in there real quick because you quoted the rest of that ayat. It says that there is none like him. Like a lot of the our Orthodox brothers and sisters, like they take that to say that God can't be a man because there's none like him. But again, that's not the understanding, because
That's not the
remember
correct
the Holy Quran.
interpretation. That's not the
Right.
correct interpretation. Yeah.
Wisdom, right? He would have the wisdom. He would have the book and the wisdom. Right. So that's said in two prayers. It's saying in regards to the Messiah, and also from the prayer, a prayer that Abraham had, right? Also that a messenger raised from with the wisdom. So the imams can't claim that they have that wisdom that God. They could only study it and say what they think it is. You know, but the Most Honorable Elijah Muhammad said, I met God in person. And he says, you know, when it says there's none like unto him, what that means, that doesn't mean he's not a human being. It just means that he is foremost. Like we all manifest the attributes of Allah, right? There are 99 attributes to Allah, and they are his characteristics, right? So some his foremost characteristics is mercy and beneficence, right? So in the Quran, every chapter except one, I believe, opens up. It says, in the name of Allah, the beneficent, the merciful. So it's showing you that Allah is beneficent, meaning he's goodwill. He brings goodwill, like even undeserved to us, right? And he's also merciful. So we all have that as a man. I show beneficence. God, their son shows beneficence and mercy, right? But it says Allah is the foremost, you know, manifester of that attribute. So he shows the most beneficence, the most mercy. So that's why it's none like him, because none of us have that attribute to that degree. We don't have a hold on that attribute to the degree he has. So that's why it's none like him, and why he's supreme above us, because he can manifest all 99 attributes on a higher level than the rest of us. You see, but it doesn't mean he's not a man. Like, you understand what I'm saying? But that's the way they take it, because you know, some people want to believe that it's something more than man. Like they see the condition that the earth is in, and they say, you know what, this earth is messed up. I never met a person that was really good, or you know, that I could say was 100% righteous. So therefore, God must be something more than a man. But you know, maybe that man, God as a man, just didn't introduce himself to you yet. You know, in person. That's how that really should be taken. Yeah, God.
Beautiful teaching, God. Beautiful teaching. You know what I'm saying? And to show how merciful Allah is, and how he's a degree, or not even a degree, but he's degrees higher than us in mercy, is he even shows mercy to the devil. Think about that. His grace is a mercy. You know what I'm saying? You know.
Yes, sir.
So that's powerful when you think about that. You know, like, would you show mercy to your enemy? Someone you know, like if you know, like, I'm trying to kill you right now, nigga. I'm trying to kill you. Are you gonna show mercy to somebody like me? But Allah shows mercy. So that's when you said that, that's powerful. You know what I'm saying? Not a degree, but degrees higher than us in mercy and beneficence. Yes, sir.
Right.
Yeah.
Force and power.
Yes, sir.
It's for, like, that was the more and more I studied that, the more I began to see that the messenger used the perfect word to describe Allah in the darkness, man. Like, you see it everywhere. Like, we all full of fire, all full of electricity, water, like all of that dark matter. So, and lastly, I don't know how I forgot to say this, but That's how we know that God is black, because he formed himself from the dark matter of the universe. You see, so that's how we know beyond doubt. If there was no light, there was no white, there was no sun. You know what I mean? The sun determines the color of things,
Right.
but he formed himself from the material and darkness. You
Right.
see what I'm
Right. I
saying? That's
remember
why God is a black man.
yes, sir. One of my enlighteners. This was, my Muslim God enlightener when I, what I'm saying, came into the nation or whatever. And me and him, one day we went up in his house, and I remember he broke down the science of that to me. Yo, that was crazy. Like, we were sitting there for like 2 hours. He was like, "Yo, God, you know how Allah created himself from out of the triple stages of darkness?" And I was like, I'm still a newborn. I'm like maybe 3 years old in wisdom, 2, 3 years old. And it's like when he said that, I was just like, wow. He was like, yeah, he took on the essence of the environment that he came out of. You know what I'm saying? Like, and I was just like, man, you know what I'm saying? Powerful teaching, powerful, powerful. You know what I mean? RIP to the God, you know what I'm saying, for this long. You know what I mean? But yeah, God, I ain't gonna hold you too much longer, man. Let me get ready so I can lay it down, man. That's beautiful. I'm gonna go to sleep happy tonight, man, hearing this teaching. You know what I'm saying?
Praise be to God. Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Praise do the Lord.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. But yeah, God, let me get ready so I could go, man. If anything, I'm gonna give you a buzz tomorrow. Always is good building with you, getting that good wisdom. You know what I'm saying? And hopefully, inshallah, this weekend, like I said, me, the God, Shahid, and some of the other Muslim gods, we supposed to connect. So if anything, if you're not working or whatever, you can jump in with us and, you know what I mean, show and prove, So
yes, I'm gonna come and listen. I'm gonna come.
Yeah.
Give me a seat, man. With my pad and pencil, brother.
Yes, sir.
You know what I mean?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. So with that, I leave the brotherhood as I came. In the greeting words of peace, we say it in the Arabic language. Assalamu alaikum.
Alaikum salam.
Peace to the gods. Peace to the earths and all the righteous families of the planet. Peace.
God bless us with the light of understanding. Ruler zigzag zigala.
Yeah. Peace.